Our next speaker is Todd Young, another congressional candidate. One thing I would like to say before we hear from the last two candidates, it takes a lot of money and pressure and time to run. We ought to be thankful that these guys have stepped up to do it. Todd is a graduate of Annapolis Naval Academy. I don't know how many of y'all really know what that is, but I actually applied to Annapolis. They sent me back a letter, said they didn't have a special ed section, so I was out. He's also a former Marine, graduate of IU's law school. I give you Todd Young.
Thanks so much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all. Let me begin by saying thank you all for being Tea Party patriots. If not for the Tea Party movement, ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you as someone who's been around this 9th Congressional District of Indiana for about 16 months, and I am fully persuaded that if not for people like you, we would have a monstrous #2 stimulus package. We would have cap and trade already. We would have a government option health care plan that's even worse than this health care plan. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give yourselves and the Tea Party movement a round of applause. I've been told not to make a political speech, not to talk about policies I want to embrace, and not to ask for your vote, so I won't be doing that today. Instead, I'm going to talk a little bit about leadership and service, because ultimately that's what this is all about. That's how we're going to change the direction this country is headed, is by putting people of principle, people committed to service, to serving higher ideals, and to serving others in our public offices. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I look first to our military veterans. And I'd like to ask all of them to stand up right now so we can give them a round of applause. I enlisted in the Navy out of high school. I attended the U.S. Naval Academy. I spent 5 years in the U.S. Marine Corps. And like so many of these veterans, like the Rush brothers over here, who I had an opportunity to meet today, I did so because I believe in this country. I believe in what it stood for a couple of 100 years. Constitutionally limited government. Government by we the people.
Yeah.
Somewhere along the line, some of our members of Congress, people in other positions of power, seems to have forgotten who they work for.
Right.
It's something that our leaders should never forget, that they exist to serve people like you. Now, let me tell you what I think leadership's all about by giving you an example. I have a good friend, his name is Doug Zembeck. I attended the Naval Academy with Doug. We joined the Marines at the same time. Now, Doug was one of these guys that everyone wanted to be friends with. He was an All-American wrestler, real sharp guy with a great sense of humor. And Doug always stood on principle, and he earned such incredible respect of his men once he joined the Marines that they gave him a nickname. They called Doug the Lion of Fallujah. That's right, Doug was in Iraq for a couple of years, and the Lion kept a journal when he was in Iraq. A journal where he collected his thoughts on leadership and collected pearls of wisdom from those he respected. Now, Doug was a pretty plain-spoken guy, like most of us Hoosiers, but he had some things in that journal that, to me, our political leaders would do well to read and reread. Simple phrases like lead from the front, don't forget where you come from, serve your country, serve a cause greater than yourself. On May 10th, 2007, Major Doug Zembeck was killed in action. He left behind a wife he loved and a child he adored. Now, Doug Zembeck died for his country, a cause far greater than himself. I tell this story quite a bit when I'm on the campaign trail, and why do I tell it? I think it always bears reminding what's at stake here. We are part of a larger effort, folks. We're part of a larger effort to preserve this legacy of freedom and opportunity. We are part of a larger effort to ensure that this legacy gets passed on to our children and to our grandchildren. We're the link in the chain. As we used to say in the Navy, we had a phrase, a poem we were supposed to memorize at the Naval Academy. It went like this. On every link in the cable dependeth the might of the chain. Who knows when thou mayest be tested, so live that thou bearest the strength. We're the link in the chain, ladies and gentlemen. We're the link in the chain between all of those who have given so much to keep this the greatest nation on earth. To our children and our grandchildren. It's incumbent upon us to continue to do our duties, to continue to speak out, to continue to fight for constitutionally limited government, and to speak out against those Republicans and those Democrats who've lost their way, and gosh, have they lost their way. This is not about donkeys versus elephants anymore. The issues are too great. Let me be the first to say that in recent years, our Republican Party lost its way. 2005, our Republican Congress passed more earmarks than were passed during the entire 1990s. Did you know that? Very few people spoke out. Now, Democrats have taken that to a whole new level. And it's incumbent upon all of us to ensure that we turn the page on the excesses of the past. Our system of government was designed for self-respecting people, self-reliant people who can take care of themselves, their families, their communities. And I have to tell you, this big government, big spending, borrow and spend, pass it on to your kids, worry about it later sort of government is a threat to not only our system of government, but our way of life, and it must end. And I have a whole lot more time. I want to leave here on an optimistic note. That's why all of you are here, because you believe you can make a difference. That's why I'm up here. We Americans have been proving the pessimists wrong for over 200 years. There's absolutely no reason why we cannot continue to do so. We've seen tough times before. Gettysburg, remember from your school books. Abraham Lincoln, small town attorney who grew up here in southern Indiana, stood before his fellow countrymen and he said, "This nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom." That's what we need. A new birth of freedom. And if you continue to fight through May, through November, and on into the future, we will have that new birth of freedom. We'll take back our country. We'll take back our government. God bless you. May God continue to bless America. Keep fighting.